delete কৰিলা ন নাই কৰে আগৰটো So, good evening everyone. So today we are going with the exclusive means oriented current affairs session part 2. So we'll go ahead with discussing the 13 months of current affairs that will be covered on from March 2022. Okay, and that will exclusively cover around 500 most important means oriented current affairs topics that will be relevant for you in the upcoming means. Okay, so let's start with these topics of today. So the first topic says about heritage, culture and society, where there is a blend of digital classroom teaching to shape future of education post-COVID era. So in recent times, what we have seen that in this particular era of questioning, we can see that education is basically a tool which alone can inculcate the national and cultural values and literate people of false prejudice, ignorance, and also various number of representations. So in exclusively, if I say about education, so education is one of the very important aspect where you are directly determining yourselves to be one of the matured people in the respective society. See, we in our country has got overall what? We in our society has got a good number of literacy. Okay, but we can hardly see that we have got education. Okay, education is very less in our society, and therefore we can see that education is one of the major phenomena that will enhance the cooperation between everyone in this particular atmosphere. So therefore, if I have to see the education system in our country post-COVID era, then I have to go for blending the digital classroom teaching to shape future of education post-COVID era. So you can see today's setup. Okay, we were not directly known to such number of startup before the COVID pandemic took place. But today we know about the setup, the TV, the Android TV that we have today, the table, these things, everything. Today, whatever we are seeing over here, this is one of the major phenomenon of this respective academicians which has directly directed that the blend of digital classroom teaching to shape future of education post-COVID era is a very important characteristic. So therefore, this is one of the important criteria that you need to look forward. So some of the relevant static facts associated with this. So Article 21A, where it says about the right to education, which was made as a fundamental right by the 86th Amendment Act of 2009. So the act came into effect on 1 April 2010, and it clearly states education is a fundamental right of every child. So all the private schools must skip 25% of reserved for children belonging to weaker sections of the society. So these are some type of criteria that you can see with respective to the educational wing. Okay, so ekhini amar eta important criteria hoye that is very important. Second industrial topic that comes into prominence is Union Home Minister Amit Shah said that Hindi will now be made compulsory in all 8 northeastern states up to class 10. Okay, so therefore language will only aid in growth. Learn mother tongue. CJI, that is Chief Justice of India, who has recently said about the importance of language, the importance of the mother tongue, which the students to directly go ahead with their respective process. So here we can see about critical analysis with special reference to Assam you can directly expect in this particular category. Okay, so it was a lot important because here the controversy with respective to mother tongue, with controversy respective to local language is basically coming, which is today we can see that if there is a controversy in language, then what more can we forget about what? That is the about the north-south divide. So north-south divide. Okay, so this north-south divide is basically the divide which we can see getting up from the Hindi language in comparison to various number of regional languages which you can see in the southern states. Okay, so a বস্তুটো এটা major characteristics হয় যার কারণে এই ডিবেটটো সদায় থাকে, that is the north south divide, and therefore in this particular peoples will never directly accept the Hindi language to be imposed on the southern states. So therefore this is a type of controversy which is created in this particular case. Okay, so please remember this case. Next, if I comes to something association with Assam, you can see that ceremonial distribution of financial assistance, okay, that is to 114 numbers of registered tour operators in Assam for an amount of 2.0 lakh, that is 2 lakh each, and 605 numbers of registered tourist guides of Assam for an amount of rupees 25,000 each under Paryatan Sanjivani scheme of Assam tourism. Very, very important. I can say that maximum number of questions you will get from the respective PDFs that we are directly sharing out to you. So please do the registration as soon as possible, and please do join us. Okay, so that you can get some of the major outfits from such number of things. So these cutouts are very, very important, and we are even directly accumulating the Assam Tribune. Okay, Assam Tribune or Jivan current affairs ase ami gutei bla cover up kori asu. So please do follow, please do join as soon as possible. Please watch this video so that you could get some of the maximum output, and I can directly say that this number of questions will be asked to you in the upcoming mails. So therefore Paryatan Sanjivani scheme of Assam tourism is a loan between 1 lakh and 20 lakh will be extended to interested local youths to take up new initiatives so that the tourism sector gets a fresh lease of life in the coronavirus crisis. Because we know that during the coronavirus crisis, during the corona pandemic, the tourism sector has affected very badly. बहुत बेयाके affect करिছিলে the tourism sector, which led to the loss of jobs as well as the loss of security for the people who are involved in the tourist sector. And here only the tourism department, it's not that only one or certain number of communities or people are associated in this particular tourism sector. Tourism sector directly boosts each and every people who are directly a part of this particular sector. Even a person who is basically giving a pan dukan, okay, even a person who is basically riding a vehicle or driving a vehicle, even the guides, all are a part of this particular tourism sector which directly got affected just because of this COVID pandemic. So therefore the Ministry of Tourism, Government of Assam went on for this Paryatan Sanjivani scheme, where loan between 1 lakh and 20 lakhs will be extended to the local youths to take up new initiatives so that tourism sector gets a fresh lease of life amid the COVID pandemics. Okay, so therefore this is one of the important criteria that we can see. Next, we can see about the Paryatan Sarathi. So Paryatan Sarathi, which will provide information about Assam tourism facilities for booking tour packages, hotels, along with online payment gateway options. Okay, so that is to aid the people who are coming up with or who are coming in the regions of Assam. Okay, and they will directly boost the tourism. Obviously today every number of online mediums, then obviously we will go through the checkup of this particular place online. আজি কোনো হোটেল গৈ পেলাই বুক নকৰে, বুক সুইংস আগতে চলে, okay, tour packages আগতে চাইলে. So this is one of the major criteria why we need to look forward with the option that is known to be the Paryatan Sarathi. Okay, so that is one of the major initiatives that has been taken by the government of Assam. Okay, next, if I see about this scheme, that is Punya Dhan scheme. Okay, one of the very important criteria again by the government of Assam. I can say you this number of questions you will get in the GS5. Very, very important questions that will come in the upcoming mains. I can say this from this respective cutouts. So here, if I say about Chief Minister Samagra Gramya Unnayan Yojana, CMSGUY. So rights of farmers, our priority. That is the main goal of this particular scheme. So construction of godowns at 110 locations. The ambitious schemes for construction of godowns at 110 locations through private investors in the state is being launched to further accelerate the process of procurement of paddy from farmers at minimum support price. We know what basically means the minimum support price. So this is one of the very important and major program that has been launched by the government of Assam with the initiative of Chief Minister of Assam, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma. So this scheme will be implemented by Assam Food and Civil Supplies Corporation Limited with the financial support of the Chief Minister Samagra Gramya Unnayan Yojana and under the patronage of Assam Agriculture and Commercial Plantation Mission Society, that is the AACP-MS. So that is one of the major criteria why we need to focus on this particular aspect of the scheme. That is mainly of the construction of godowns at 110 locations through various number of investors in the state, which is being launched to accelerate the process of procurement of paddy from farmers at a minimum support price. Okay, so this is one of the various schemes that you need to say or you need to read during this time period. Okay, so here obviously the cold storage, processing and transport, solar power, so all these things has been clearly discussed under this respective scheme. Okay, next if I say about the Gyanpith Bota. Okay, so you can see about 2021 বৰ্ষৰ বাবে অসমীয়া সাহিত্যৰ শিৰোমহ্য কবি শ্ৰীযুত নীলমণি ফুকনলৈ প্ৰথমবাৰৰ বাবে অসমত অনুষ্ঠিত হ'ব জ্ঞানপীঠ বঁটা প্ৰদান অনুষ্ঠান. So it was recently held in 11th April 2022. Okay, so in Rabindra Bhavan in Guwahati. Okay, so therefore we know about Gyanpith Bota. Okay, so this is a short note that is directly coming. Okay, so it was an important factor হৈ যায় কেতিয়া হৈছিলে. So this is one of the important factor. Next, if you see about the Assam Meghalaya resolve border dispute in 6 areas. So this is a very important topic in respective to internal security of this particular statehood. Okay, internal security kotha is it. So the Assam and Meghalaya government signed an agreement to resolve their 50-year-old border dispute in 6 of the 12 locations. Okay, so we have got 12 locations where the problem is still very worse. So etu amar ahi jabo 6 location solve kora karone. So you can see that the Chief Minister of Assam alongside the Chief Minister of Meghalaya alongside our Home Minister, okay, which has directly signed an agreement to solve the dispute. So this MOU is also very important. Okay, so here the 6 areas moving a total of area of around 36 square kilometers. So this 36 kilometer square is a very important aspect of this particular time. Okay, so if you wants to know about this respective issue, you can see. So what is the dispute? Meghalaya was carved out of Assam as a separate state in 1972. Okay, but the new state has challenged the Assam reorganization in 1971, leading to dispute in 12 locations in the border areas. Okay, so now if I have to say about the 12 locations, so what are the 12 locations? You can see. So the 12 locations are the Upper Tarawari, Gazang Reserve Forest, Hahim. Okay, then Lampi, Bodwar, Boklapara, Nongwa, Matamur, Khanapara, Pilangata, Desh, Demore, Block 1 and Block 2, Khanduli and Ratachara. Okay, so obviously these things are not so relevant, but you have to remember at least the 12 areas where out of 12, 6 are being signed by the respective parties so as to make this particular issues solved as soon as possible. So what is the major point of contention in this particular area? So you can see that the Meghalaya's Lampi district bordering the Kamrup district of Assam in West Garo Hills is a major point of contention between the two neighboring states. So another point of contention is the Mikir Hills, which Assam considers to be its part. Okay, so Mikir Hills is basically located near to the areas of Karbi Anglong, which is basically associated with this type of features that we can see in this particular arena. Okay, next if I see about the delimitation of constituencies must to protect indigenous people's right. So what is saying about delimitations? So delimitation here the delimitations occurs because obviously through the delimitation council constituencies are allocated to various peoples. Constituencies allocate kora jay. Okay, and these constituencies are basically one of the major aspects where MLAs are getting elected, MPs are getting elected. Okay, so এইবিলাক বস্তু আমাৰ কাৰণে ইম্পৰ্টেন্ট হৈ যায় আৰু সেইটো কাৰণে আমি delimitation কৰো এটা particular জায়গা এটা particular area. Okay, so now in Assam delimitation has been going on and therefore because of this delimitation we can see the merger of districts like Vishwanath Chariali with Sunitpur, then Bozali with Borpeta, then Tamulpur with Baksa. So এইটো কৰা গৈছে. Okay, just because we can see that the demographic changes has taken place in such constituencies and therefore such number of things to tackle down the delimitation is created so that everyone living inside that particular region are equally represented. Okay, equally represented along with the proper vote share. It is very important. Because without having a proper vote share, it will be very much difficult for that particular person to cast his vote. Because obviously, if he is in minorities, he cannot cast his vote at that particular location, and therefore, this is one of the important criteria that you need to look forward. Okay. Next. If I see about this one, CPA resolves to involve youth in democratic process. Okay, so this is directly a cutout from the Assam Tribune. You can see that is the Commonwealth of Parliamentary Associations. Okay, so they are directly trying to resolve some of the youth in democratic process because you can see that recently Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla along with Governor Jagdish Mufi at the 8th Commonwealth Parliamentary Association India Regional Conference held in Guwahati. So therefore, this person who was basically our Speaker of the Lok Sabha, he visited Guwahati and therefore various number of youths to get involved in the democratic process were being entailed by this particular person and he tries to make each and everyone to be a part of this particular democratic process and therefore this things was in news. Okay, so you have to see about the possible pros and cons analysis that how the people or how the youth could directly incorporate more and more number of framing laws and how you could incorporate more and more number of deliberating different situations that you can see in the coming times. So এই বস্তুখিনি আমাৰ কাৰণে important হৈ যায় because if the peoples of the coming generations will come more and more towards us, then at some point of time I can directly say that this people will have more deliberate exercise to know about the situations of this country and they could handle this country more better as compared to the present times. So therefore, as difficulty increases, as situation changes, we can see that more and more number of people directly gets accumulated to this particular purpose and therefore such things happen in the coming times in this particular events. So therefore, this things is one of the major criteria that you can see with respect to the visit of the Lok Sabha Speaker in Assam. Okay. Next. If I comes towards areas of Indian polity, I can see that there is a particular amendment that has been done. Okay, that is the Criminal Procedure Identification Act 2022, which has come into force after being passed by the Parliament in April 2022. It replaces the Identification of Prisoners Act 1920, a colonial era law, and authorizes police officers to take measurements of people convicted, arrested, or facing trial in criminal cases. So therefore, Parliament directly passes this particular law, which is in terms of the criminal identification about which is the way a criminal is identified. If he has done a crime, what type of crime needs to be declared to him, what type of crime needs to be associated with him. These are some of the certain elements that needs to be covered once you are directly having a criminal records. So that is one of the major criteria why these things directly came into prominence, that is of the crime. So therefore you can see if I have to go back to the police as per section 53 or section 53A of the Code of Criminal Procedure CRPC 1973 can collect data. So there are some of the important provisions that you need to say over here. You can see that relevant provisions, persons whose measurements can be taken. So here identification of the Prisoners Act should be convicted of an offence punishable with rigorous imprisonment of 1 year or upwards. Then this act, that is recent amendment act, if convicted of an offence punishable under any law. So these are the major criteria. The persons who are measures to be taken, then measurements that can be taken, okay, then also the destruction of measurements who are directly going with this particular purpose. So everything has been clear-cutly defined in this particular category so that one can be easily been framed under laws in a very easy way and also could be enhanced its particular purpose of having a well-fledged law that makes a criminal entails towards parts. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria that you can see over here, and that is one of the important reasons why we need to focus on such number of amendments and how we can replace the laws which has been very much during the colonial area only when it has been formed. Next, if I comes towards the social justice, so here the key was government should have financial impact in mind while coming up with schemes. So here it has been said that the Supreme Court today said that government should always have the financial impact in mind while coming up with any schemes and refer to the Right to Education Act by observing that it's a classic example where a right has been created, but where are the schools? So it basically defines that there are less schools as today as compared to the number of people, number of children who wants to study. Okay, and therefore this has been directly said that the observation was made by bench headed by Justice U.V. Lalit, which was hearing a plea seeking adequate infrastructures across the country for providing effective legal aid to women abused in matrimonial homes and creating shelter homes for them. Okay, so who was appearing for the center, that the classic example is the Right to Education Act. So here basically it says about that how an education can set up the mindset and how it can directly change the mindset of this particular people who are associated with this particular element of education. So therefore this is one of the major phenomena which has recently been discussed by the Social Justice Department of respectively the Supreme Court. Okay, chalo next पे आते हैं. You can see complete APSC repeal may take time. Okay, so here this has been declared by Nagaland CM. Because in certain areas of Nagaland, we can see that still the APSC, which is the Armed Forces Special Power Act, okay, which gives some of the immense power to the armed forces to search, to take, or to even arrest, or to even detain, or to even go for various number of operations. They gives a free hand without any consultation with the respective state police or with respective to the state government. So this has the powers given directly by the center. So this is one of the very important criteria of APSC. So today we could see that APSC has been fully or partially withdrawn from parts of 3 northeastern states, Assam, Nagaland and Manipur, and repeal of this APSC is outcome of improved security conditions in the northeastern region. So we know that northeast is infested with insurgency from a very long period of time, and the very first insurgency directly took place around 1960s, where in Nagaland. So Nagaland, we could see that such number of insurgency has been declared, such number of areas has been declared where some number of problems can be seen with respect to insurgency. So this is one of the major criteria why Nagaland is so hostile and why Nagaland is directly going with all such number of phenomena. So therefore, this outcome of improved secure conditions in the northeast region can be seen with the improved conditions or about the improved security setup of a country like today. Okay, আজিৰ নিচিনা যেটো আমাৰ কান্ট্ৰি সেটআপ হৈ আছে, আজি আমাৰ কান্ট্ৰিয়ে যেটো আমাৰ security conditions to maintain কৰি আছে, that security conditions are very essential once you have to set up this particular region into order. So bought in 1958 in order to curb insurgency in Nagaland 1958, and under this act forces get extraordinary powers to restore law and order in a disturbed area. So anyone who is basically under APSC can be declared under a disturbed area. So to disturbed area under a police act. So that is one of the major criteria why you have to focus on this particular aspect. Okay, next. So APSC is in effect in Jammu and Kashmir, Nagaland, Assam, Manipur, excluding 7 assembly constituencies of Imphal and parts of Arunachal Pradesh. So APSC was repealed in Tripura in 2015, and in 2018 the center also removed from Meghalaya from the list while also restricting its use in Arunachal Pradesh. So that is one of the major criteria why we have to see about this particular process of APSC. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria that you need to entail in this particular provision. Though there are various issues associated with APSC, the question that issues are violation of some constitutional rights. For example, Article 22 has been violated many number of times. Okay, that is no person. That is, it basically says about the rights against detention. Rights against detention. Okay, that is one of the criteria. Okay, so every person who is arrested and detained in custody shall be produced before the nearest magistrate within a period of 24 hours of such arrest. So therefore, there are even various number of incidents where the incidents of sexual assaults can be seen against women. So under APSC 1958, the armed forces are given special protection even in cases related to sexual offences. So Assam has become very peaceful. Almost all incident groups join mainstream, and thus on Armed Forces Special Power Act should be withdrawn. So today, very less number of areas has got APSC, basically seeing about Charaido and some portions which is directly covering some of the areas of Nagaland. So एक ही जगह lots of APSC है, but more or less we can see APSC has been completely removed from the regions like Assam. Now if I say about some of the portions associated with international relations, so here the key is today is a time to make the Bay of Bengal a bridge of connectivity, bridge of prosperity and bridge of security. So today when I say about Bay of Bengal, it is basically saying about this particular area. Okay, if this is India, so this is the region of Bay of Bengal. Okay, this is the region of Bay of Bengal and we all know this is the portion of Arabian Sea. Okay, that is the western portion and this is the eastern portion. We have many countries like Bangladesh over here. We have countries like the Myanmar over here. We have this Andaman Nicobar over here, which is a part of our territory. So, actually, amar karne bahut important hoy. And anyone who is basically having a prominence towards the Bay of Bengal, so they are directly under the cooperation of BIMSTEC, BIMSTEC. Okay, so BIMSTEC is basically a cooperation, okay, which is directly a need of the hour, okay, which is basically said by the Prime Minister, which will directly entail the connectivity, also the prosperity and also the security conditions of this particular area. So that is one of the major criteria of being a person associated with this particular area. So BIMSTEC is basically a reality that we can see in the coming times. Okay, so today if I say about BIMSTEC, so you can see this one, this all, what should you know? So BIMSTEC, Bangladesh, Bhutan, then Nepal, India, okay, then we can see about Russia, then we can see about this country and Sri Lanka. So all this respective Southeast Asia, Bangkok, Thailand, okay, then we can see about the countries like the Myanmar, okay. So in Gutekini, we can see that they are a part of this particular area where you have to focus much more towards the importance of this country. So you can see all these countries which you have located in the respective map, including Thailand, Myanmar, Bhutan, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they are a part of this particular BIMSTEC summit. So importance of the BIMSTEC is because it accounts for 22% of the world's population. It's a combined GDP of around $2.7 trillion, 1/4 of the world's traded goods across the Bay every year, and 6 focus areas: trade, technology, energy, transport, tourism and fisheries. These are very, very important forces. Okay, here jikhini important kotha koise about trade, about technology, about energy, about transport, about tourism and fisheries. So ekhini bostu bahut important hoye jay. Okay, these are the important sectors which are the focus area of this particular member countries under the Bay of Bengal initiative for multi-sectoral and technical economic cooperation. So ekhini bostu karone amar these areas are very, 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 very important. Okay, ekhini bostu ami janibo lage about the BIMSTEC. Okay, so that is the major criteria what you should know about BIMSTEC. Next, if I comes towards this one, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and retired Honorable Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba, that is the Prime Minister of Nepal, then we can see a wide-ranging bilateral discussions in New Delhi, and both Prime Ministers agreed that there are unprecedented opportunity for expanding and further strengthening mutually beneficial bilateral cooperation in the power sector, including joint development of power generation projects in Nepal, development of power generation program, development of cross-border transmission infrastructures, bi-directional power trade with appropriate access to electricity, and coordinated operation, the national grids, and also we could see about the institutional cooperation in sharing latest operational information technology and know-how. So today, if you need to focus on India-Nepal relations, we have to first depend ourselves on power generation. Second, we have to develop the cross-border transmission infrastructures, means the development which we are directly taking place in our country, that same type of development should even come out in the respective areas of like Nepal. Okay, amar jitu development choli ase aji, he same type of development to code hobo lagibo, Nepal to hobo lagibo. Nepalor jikhini power generate kori ase, obviously they have to sell their respective power resources because they do not have such much number of consumption. So he bostu khiniu ami aji kini asu. So that is also one of the major criteria why we are directly closing our relations enough. Then bidirectional power trade with appropriate access to electricity markets in both countries based on mutual benefits are market demand and applicable domestic regulations of each countries are important. Then lastly, coordinated operations of natural grid, and also we could see about that. Lastly, the institutional cooperation in sharing latest operational information technology and know-how. Okay, so such type of information is very essential once you are directly associating yourself with the IR portions and you are directly terming a respective country on the basis of current affairs. So that is one of the major criteria why you have to directly study this particular number of current affairs. Okay. So here, if I have to see about Indo-Nepal, so please remember about the Indo-Nepal Treaty of Friendship. Indo-Nepal Treaty of Friendship, which happened in 1950. So that is one of the major criteria why you have to say about this particular process. Then, if I comes around the India-Australia Cooperation and Trade Agreement, that is the India-Aus ECTA, which was linked by Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal and Australian Minister for Trade, Tourism and Investment. Okay, so ekini bostu amar karone important hoy. You can see this one. India-Australia Ink Trade Pact, thousands of Indian goods to get duty-free access. So we know that India and Australia does not have got a good number of trade-related activities. As you amar logot India-Australia logot directly free trade agreement 9. Okay, basically limited to some of these sectors, but obviously we are not having a good duty-free any access towards the Australian markets, and therefore this Indo-Australia ECTA will cover some of the major areas like what? These are the areas: goods areas, services, rules of origin, technical barriers to trade and sanitary and phytosanitary measures, customs procedures and trade facilitation, trade remedies, legal and institutional remedies, movement of natural persons. So ekhinik covered poribo kune India-Australia trade agreement. Okay, and that is one of the very essential part of this trade process. So goods of poribo, services of poribo, rules of origin of poribo, barriers to trade and sanitary and phytosanitary measures, customs procedures and trade facilitation, trade remedies, legal and institutional issues, and lastly, movement of natural persons. Because once you are having such number of trade with all those people, then at some point of time, this will directly help you out to improve the relations between the respective countries. Okay, so that is in association with the trade that is having between, that is in between India and Australia. Okay, so coming to the next one, India defends oil purchases from Russia. India's actions, no violations on sanctions. So it has been recently said about that though India is directly acting as a good partner of USA, but still we can see that India continues to directly behave in a very friendly manner with an aggressive nation like Russia, who has shown aggression in Ukraine. Okay, so though Russia does not claims this particular element to be one of the intermittent problems, okay, they do not directly accept this to be the problem of military actions, a war, okay, rather they define this to be a military aggressions, military movements or actions against Ukraine, who has joined the NATO. So obviously anyone who directly fears its particular element, they has to go ahead with the respective protection and security. So a bostu khini amar karone important hoi jay when you have to directly focus on the respective elements associated with their respective discussions. So Zetia Russia is on all these respective factors, we can see that slowly and slowly India directly wants on to purchase oil, and also India is purchasing one more thing which I want to define it over here, that is fertilizers. Okay, fertilizers. So India fertilizers hawk, the oil hawk, they are directly purchasing from Russia, and because of that the oil prices in India gradually went down at some point of time, and this is one of the major criteria why we have to focus on this respective aspect. So therefore India's actions, no violations of sanctions, that is said by US in this coming time. Okay, so therefore India is directly making some of the waivers from US to buy oil from Russia. So that is one of the important factor, and therefore you can see that India's import of crude oil from Russia touched a new high of around 1.64 million barrels per day. Just think about the scenario in March 23, and is now double of the purposes from Iraq and the nation's traditional top oil supplier. So basically we are mainly focused on Iraq, but today it has been replaced by Russia. It has been replaced by Russia, and which entails to go on to 1.64 million barrel per year. That is one of the major criteria of this particular trend. Next, if I comes towards science and tech, India test fires Pinaka missile system. So obviously, if you just get it a little slow zoom, it will become more distinct. Okay. Anyways, so a new version of the Pinaka rocket system has been successfully flight tested by the DRDO and the Indian Army at the Pokhran firing range, the Defense Minister said on Saturday. So as many as 24 Pinaka Mk1 enhanced rocket systems EPRS were fired from different ranges during the last 49 and weapons meet the required accuracy and consistency, it said. So therefore the Pinaka rockets are one of the major rockets that we can see in the coming times, which will directly entail the respective missile system in our country. Okay, so this Pinaka rocket systems, which was launched by DRDO, is one of the major aspect why we need to have a proper control over the Pinaka missiles, because these are some of the very highly accurate missiles that we can see in the coming times. Okay, so recently this enhanced Pinaka Mk1 rocket, which was recently fired upon by DRDO, directly proves India's evidence about knowing about what is this basically Pinaka. So this Pinaka rocket is a multi-barrel rocket system which is named after Lord Shiva's bow. Lord Shiva's bow. That is the respective background of this particular thing. That is Pinaka. Okay, so therefore Lord Shiva's jidal bow hoy, hey Lord Shiva's bow dalak ami ki kau Pinaka boli kau. So it is developed by the Pune based Armament Research and Development Establishment and High Energy Material Research Laboratory, and this development of this particular type of Pinaka was started by DRDO in the late 1980s. Okay, so 1980s it took launch kora goisile aru tar pisot gradually it started to have a well-fledged address towards having a proper system, so that this type of missile system directly entails the need of such missiles in the coming time to even the countries which India tries to have a respective export. Okay, India enuka nohoy ki defense manufacturing khini nijor karone kori ase, nijor karone to korise, tar logot bahut khini export koribolo ekhini amak India or DRDO is directly in their respective process. Okay, so you can see that Pinaka, which was the earlier time, because Pinaka was even used during the time of the Kargil war. Kargil war time of Pinaka use kora gochile. Okay, so now this extended or the first Pinaka missile system, that is the extended one, is being enhanced one, is being launched by the DRDO in the recent times. So that's why this was basically in news. Next, if I say about anti-tank guided missile Helena successfully flight tested. So anti-tank guided missile Helena completed the flight test at high altitudes range today as a part of user validation trials, and the flight test was joined conductedly by the team of scientists from DRDO and also the Indian Army as well as the Air Force. So the trial was conducted from an advanced light helicopter and the missile which was fired successfully at a simulated tank target it mentioned. So therefore it directly says about the type of accuracy what we have towards our respective system. So how much accurate DRDO is, how much accurate our Indian Army is, and how much accurate our respective products is. So a gutekini amar science kune in this respective criteria we have to directly say about how these guided missiles are very much successful and how these guided missiles are very much accurate in their respective destinations to track upon. So etu karone etu bostu amar news asile. So this is one of the very important criteria about the anti-tank guided missiles. Okay, now if I say about this one, India successfully flight tested solid fuel ducted Ramzan booster, a missile system at the integrated test range in Chandipur of the Orissa coast. Okay, so this is the respective successfully test fired missile system, that is the SFDR. Okay, so the SFDR based propulsion, that is the solid fuel ducted Ramzan is a missile to intercept aerial threats at a very long range at a supersonic speeds. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria of a supersonic speed, that how it directly entails about the provisions of becoming one of the major activities during this particular time frame. Okay, so just a second, I will look after the respective comments that are coming over here. Okay. Okay, fine. So if I need to entail over here about the supersonic, okay, so you can see, so here the supersonic speed is basically saying about the directions or the entailments which is basically more than sound. More than sound. Okay, the speed is more than sound. So therefore, this is the element which you need to have at a very long range in this particular criteria, and this is basically the higher propulsion enables the missile to intercept aerial at this particular range groups. So it is one of the major important criteria why we need to engage this one associated with the DRDO. Okay. Next, if I say about Israeli researchers discover cell mechanisms, that is the rapid DNA repair, deoxyribonucleic acid repair. So Israel discovered a mechanism that is responsible for the rapid repair of the broken DNA, and the Northern Israel Institute of Technology has reported this particular incident. So the genome essential for all organisms is threatened by many external and internal factors which causes thousands of DNA damage events in the cell every day. Okay, so we all know about the basic structure of life, that is the cell, and how the cells directly have the form of DNA and how we can directly make this DNA very much of complex so that we can see less number of organisms directly getting affected through its particular purpose. So therefore, this repair is being initiated by the Israeli researchers that discovers the cell mechanisms to go ahead with various number of problems associated with various diseases in a respective DNA sample. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria you can see. So this is basically the DNA. Okay. Next, if I say about digital startups can make young job creators. So today we could see that today India has total of 81 unicorns as of now, which is a total valuation of rupees 274 billion, and almost 90 founders among 500 US unicorns were Indian born. So if I say about the Indians, okay, who are basically having a good number of unicorns, because today slowly various number of companies are coming under the unicorn setup. Okay. So in this particular primary category, if I have to say about the companies or about the startups, which slowly focuses on the idea of having more and more amount of business in the respective country. So today the startup ecosystem has created job creators rather than job seekers. So even various people today directly comes on to say that how you need to be job givers rather than being a job seeker. So that is one of the major criteria of this particular unicorns, and how these unicorns came into prominence to entail much of its demand in the coming scenario. Okay, so A was to in this particular element. Okay, and today we could see that how India has a total of 81 unicorns, and how amongst the 500 unicorns, some of the areas 90 founders were basically from India born. So therefore India has got a highly talent of the startups, and therefore the startup industries has directly grown today in thus particular periods. Okay, and that is basically, if I see that post COVID pandemic, such number of things has directly increased. Next, if I see about Prime Minister led Cabinet Committee on Security approved the procurement of 15 indigenously developed light combat helicopters, that is LCH, at the cost of 3887 crore. Okay, that is a small news coming up with the helicopters that we directly due for procurement, and where 10 helicopters will be for the Indian Army and Air Force, and 5 will be for the Indian Army. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria why we need this particular thing and why this is run. So we can see that today in our country, who produces the helicopters? It is the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Okay. Next, government decisions on eco-sensitive zones likely to hit Karbi settlers. Okay, so you can see this is the basic decisions that can biodiversity and its conservation eco-sensitive zones relate significant challenges, threats, and steps that need to be taken around Environment Protection Act 1986 and the National Wildlife Action. So that is, you can see that government is directly aiming to make some of the economically sensitive zones for in these regions of Mithir Hills, which is basically focused on the regions of Karbi Anglong. Or a settlers below Karne, this area is very important and this is very sensitive zone. Okay. And therefore you can see that this may directly harm the impact because they wants to develop the region of Karbi Anglong, and this development may help these areas grow in a rapid manner. So therefore it may help. So this was basically news. So therefore you should look about the environmental concerns associated with the state of Assam, and you should directly discuss about the respective entities. Now if I see about the economic development, why Indian MSMEs needs to move to cloud faster. Okay, so there is a rapid process that why the MSME, that is the micro, small, medium enterprises, okay, why they need to have a good understanding about how to set up the respective demands of the respective state. So which is the basic area which you need to focus. So see, the pandemic has accelerated the pace of digital transformation to such a level that more and more Indian micro, small and medium enterprises are seeking to move to the cloud, and the country has to find newer ways to help them faster. Okay, and therefore you can see employing more than 11 crore people, the MSMEs contributes around 30% to the country's gross domestic product, and more than half of these are running legacy infrastructure scattered to the rural parts of the country. So the Indian mid-market enterprises and asking for a comprehensive cloud and digital strategy, and the questions they are asking us today are very different from earlier. So it has been said about that how the startup ecosystem has rapidly made India to be in the global process, and how this could directly entail the development of such number of industries in the coming times that is to be looked after. So এইখিনি বস্তুৱে আমাৰ ইয়াতে কোৱা গৈছে about the MSMEs. So you have to basically know about what are the MSMEs, what are the types of MSMEs, what are the respective areas why we need to focus on the MSMEs, what are the respective sectors in which number of denominations the MSMEs are classified. So এই গোটেই বস্তুখিনি আমি জানিব লাগিব. Okay, that is one of the very important criteria of knowing about the MSMEs and their respective types. Next, if I see about this one, number of patent filings in financial year 2022 rises to 66,440. Okay, so it says about, okay, this one. Okay, it says about something which is saying about the patent rights. Okay, so here I can directly say that patent is one of the very important regime of the country in the terms of commerce, in terms of various number of business. So that is an important requirement. Okay, so it's basically just the information, nothing more with that. Then connectivity with Central Asia, like key priority for India. So Central Asian countries, if I have to say, so we can see if this is Jammu and Kashmir over here, we can see all the way Central Asian countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, okay, and we can see Kyrgyzstan, then we can see about Turkmenistan. T, okay, T, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan. So these are the countries of the Central Asia which were a part of the USSR before 1990s. Okay. So therefore, President Ramnath Kovind on Sunday said that the connectivity with the Central Asian countries remain a key priority for India, which is a member of the International North-South Transport Corridor and the Ashgabat Agreement. So INSTC is a transport agreement that is directly ultimately connecting on to Russia, and therefore this is a major area, that is the Central Asia is a major area because we know the Central Asian countries are landlocked countries. Central Asian countries ki hoy? Landlocked countries are today. So therefore, this is one of the major criteria which we need to force upon this particular arena, and therefore this is the major criteria why we have to focus on the Central Asian countries, because to increase connectivity, also to have an entails business, and also to counter China, because China has directly got the boundaries with the Central Asian countries. We need to have a more cooperative and friendly relations with countries of Central Asia, and that is one of the major aspects why we need to focus on this particular area. Okay, so again karone yate kothatu. Okay, next you can see that how the 5 ways in which MSMEs plays a crucial role in Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we have just discussed. So the photo just got displayed. So you can see MSME contribution to India's GDP is expected to increase. The share of export is 45%, and inclusive growth by employing 11 crore people including unskilled workers. Share of MSMEs in the manufacturing sector is around 37%, and 33% of India's MSMEs are into services as compared to 67% in manufacturing. So that is the 5 ways in which the MSMEs directly can play a crucial role in Atmanirbhar Bharat. Okay, so that is one of the important criteria that has been discussed over here. Next, development of waterways will boost economy in northeastern region. Okay, so it is basically saying about the national waterways, because we know that the national waterways too directly comes from Sadia to Dhubri, and also I can say about the national waterway 6, okay, which is directly in the Barak region, okay, which is basically in the southern parts of the river Barak, or in the southern parts of the state of Assam. So here Sonwal, that is our ex-chief minister today, he is the union minister for port, shipping and waterways. So he has directly talked about the development of the waterways which will be boosting an economy to the northeastern regions. Even if I say about the recently motor vehicle which directly came towards Assam by taking a lot many number of people from the national waterway 1, ultimately going through the Bangladesh international protocol route, and then ultimately entering into Assam, ultimately going to the regions like Dibrugarh, is one of the major aspects why we need to focus on this particular part. Okay, so therefore he wants to connect this particular areas through various number of cargo vessels, and also through various number of transportation industries will also bloom if such number of connectivities can increase in this particular waterway. So therefore he focus on increasing such number of areas. Next, if I have to say, Sri Lanka produces around 300 million cases of tea annually and predominantly an orthodox tea producers. The country exports around 97 to 98% of its annual output. A rating agency ICRC Limited Kaushik Das say. Okay, so it has been discussed about the Sri Lankan economic crisis, but still how this industry has slowly and slowly tried to grow up in this coming time, defeating even countries like India and UAE. So we know about the Sri Lankan economical crisis. Okay, India relies heavily on the port of Colombo for global trade, and approximately 60% of the India's transshipment cargo is handled by this particular port because of the friendly relations between India and Sri Lanka. Okay, and at present, thousands of containers sent to Sri Lanka from India have been lying uncleared at the port as the concerned authorities are unable to transfer containers between terminals. And this in turn has resulted in a build-up cargoes intended for Sri Lanka at the Indian ports. Okay, so that is one of the major criteria that we can see because of the economical crisis we can see with respect to Sri Lanka. So therefore there are various number of challenges with this country, and therefore India's growing needs for getting a transshipment hub gets another push with the Sri Lankan crisis. So any stability in Sri Lanka can obviously affect the global impact on also with respective to India. It's a major impact because we have got a very good and partnership relations with countries like Sri Lanka, and therefore it will help us out in the process of going for the international trade and tapping the market of international trade. So not only the economic crisis has affected such number of companies or such number of trade activities, even this has directly affected various number of humanitarian crises, which is India's closest neighbor. And with the shortage of essential commodities such as food, medicines, and growing political instability, India finds itself in a position of massive responsibility to prevent the crisis through all possible aid. And therefore, India, being a matured and a developed nation, has tried to overcome this particular phenomenon of Sri Lanka in the coming times. So that is one of the major criteria why we need to see this particular crisis going on. So therefore, India has got a good opportunity to set a breach of all supply gaps and therefore to trade more and more with countries like Sri Lanka. That is one of the major criteria why we need to see and what is the opportunities that we need to see in this particular area. Next, you have to see bid to restore glory of Northeast waterways. You can see, okay, bid to restore glory of Northeast waterways. Waterways Conclave 2022 gets underway in Dibrugarh, and this has been recently launched by the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, seeking to improve the waterways ecosystem in the Northeast to boost trade and commerce with the neighboring countries. So that's why we have discussed recently. Then if I say about the environment, many Charaidho Maidams lying in the state of neglect. So therefore, this has been recently been claimed. Assam government has directly asked the government of India to include them in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Okay, these are the burial grounds of some of the kings and the queens of the Ahom kingdom. So that is one of the major criteria why we need to focus on these particular Maidams to make them in a good positions. Next, if I say about green hydrogen, which is a type of hydrogen that is produced through the electrolysis of water using renewable energy sources such as solar or wind power. The electrolysis process splits water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the hydrogen produced can be used as a clean and renewable fuel. That is one of the major aspects why we need to focus on this particular criteria of green hydrogen, which is directly producing from solar or wind, or you can say any form of renewable sources of energy. Okay, so hydrogen, green hydrogen বুলি কোৱা লগে এনেকুৱা নহয় যে hydrogen to green হৈ যাব. It's not. Okay, it's something that is flowing from the green sources of energy. So that is one of the major aspects of this green hydrogen. Okay, then oil opens India's first pure green hydrogen plant. So what is the significance in achieving this emission target? Because green hydrogen energy is vital for India to meet its national determined contribution NDC and the targets and ensure regional and national energy security, access and availability. Okay, so therefore, this Oil India Limited, India's second largest national explorer and producing company, has taken the first significant step towards the green hydrogen economy in India with commissioning of India's first 99.999% pure green hydrogen pilot plant with an installed capacity of rupees 10 kg per day at Jorhat pump station in Assam today. So Jorhat becomes the first country to go with the oil industry as well as going with the green hydrogen plant. Okay, so that is going with the 500 kilowatt solar power plant using a 100 kilowatt anion exchange membrane. So that is also very important. So because it is directly producing from solar, so therefore we are referring it to be the green hydrogen. Okay, so that is their respective significance. Then India's transition to clean energy combat climate change. So obviously we know that we want to have the climate change very much limited, and therefore we need to focus on much aspect of having a greater entirety towards climate change, and therefore we are directly trying to preserve it from 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. The climate atmosphere changes. So this is directly to strengthen the clean energy and to combat the climate change. We need to focus upon this respective aspect, and therefore in terms of mobility we can see that how we could reduce ourselves and our dependence on the import of oil that is coming in from outside India. Okay, that is one of the major criteria why we need to focus on this particular aspect. Okay. So India added 13.5 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity in 2021-22. That is one of the major aspects. बहुत important है. Okay, India add 13.5 gigawatt. Okay, of renewable capacity. Okay, that includes everything. Be it solar. Okay, be it wind. Okay, एक गुटे किनी हमारे यहाँ add करा गया है. And here also you can find that India added this one until like around 1.11 gigawatt of wind power and 2.2 gigawatt of rooftop solar capacity. So that is one of the very important measure why you need to have a particular aspect of this particular news. Okay, so you can see that Rajasthan 5806 megawatt and Gujarat 2469 megawatt added the high capacity in this 12 months, accounting for 61% of total capacity additions. So that is one of the major criteria why we need to focus on this particular aspect. Okay, now disaster management, water crisis in Guwahati. So role of scientific methods in weather forecasting explained. Okay, so what are the total process that we need to take when you are directly saying about the aspect of scientific methods. So today you can see that when you are directly saying about the atmospheric content at the sun, at some point of time you can see that waterlogging problem starts. So this waterlogging problems is one of the major aspects why we need to focus on various methods how we directly can forecast the weather and how this can be used to reduce the impact of flooding scenario in our country. Okay, and not only in our country, even in our state. So therefore, every aspects of scientific methods are therefore explained that how it could reduce the major impact of this country's atmosphere and how we could directly say that it could make this country more suitable in the coming times to tackle every number of phenomena that are associated with this scientific methods of weather forecasting. So a weather forecasting bilak amar karone bahut important hoi jay, because as soon as we can forecast the weathers, at some point of time I can directly say that here the focus is majorly on the types of weather that is created in the coming times, that may even Ajiswa in certain period of time we can see more hot climate. Okay, in certain points of time we can see more humid climate, and in certain points of time we can see more rainy climate. So ekini bostu amar karone bahut important hoi jay, hot, humid, rainy. So in this particular criteria, the major entailments is with the respective elements of climate, the weather, and in the scenario you have to focus much more towards having some of the scientific methods to tackle the desertification, the climate change. A gutekini ami jodi ebar focus koribo paro, that will help us immensely to help our particular people, the population, the citizens, and to take care of every entailments present in this particular region, so that we can save our citizens from extreme climatic conditions that we can see in the coming time. Extreme climatic conditions are then you need to have a proper analysis of the process that is very much required to have a proper compulsions of the weather related climatic associations. So ekini bostu amar karone bahut important hoi jay, which is totally discussed in this particular slides of today. Okay, so in this particular criteria you can see that the role of scientific methods of this particular weather forecasting is very easy, and this is the type of process that we can see is a very important requirement of today, and therefore all this number of current affairs that what we have discussed today will be very much relevant for you in the coming times, and this could directly make the whole process of your preparation very easy. So therefore, if you want to contact us via our channel, via our website, you can directly contact us via our website csap.co.in, or you can use this particular code which is known to be this one, and you can directly say about, or you can directly have an information on this particular number 9127515541. Also, I want to just declare you one particular topic, that tomorrow, that is 25th of April, Submersion Hall in Cotton University, we will be having with us Sri Anil Swarup, retired IAS and former Corps Secretary of the Government of India. So he will be giving you some of the live interactions about how to clear the APSC mains and how to write answers. So if you want to join us, do join us at 11 a.m. at Submersion Hall, Cotton University, okay, Guwahati, Okay, and also please do join us, and this is absolutely free. Thus, you have to register via a link given, and also you can call by this number to have a proper affiliations, to have a proper interaction, and this will be a one-to-one interaction with this particular renowned person like Anil Swarupji. Okay, so that is with us for today. Okay, so we will be seeing with the day 3 of current affairs soon. Okay, so please study well and have a good day ahead. Bye bye.